What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we'll be breaking down UFC 297. Sean Strickland, the middleweight champion of the UFC, versus Dricus du Plessis at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Canada. Big news. Before we get to break down the card, in the last episode, I talked about UFC 300 not having a main event. John Jones is out. Conor McGregor's out. Who's gonna save this card? Dana White came through with some big news today, and that is that Bobby King Green is coming to save the UFC 300 card. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, two veterans. They are the saviors of this card. I cannot wait. That was my play at sarcasm. Personally, I love Bobby Green. He's one of my favorite fighters. Jim Miller, of course, I picked him to lose on the last episode, and he ended up winning in his UFC fight. So shout out to him, the all-time winning UFC record holder. So him versus Bobby King Green will be lights out. I expect nothing short of two veterans going in there and leaving it all in the octagon. Well, I would probably lean more towards Bobby Green winning this matchup because he seems to have looked a little bit better in his previous fights outside of Jalen Turner and knocking his lights out. But that happens, you know. And the other announcement Dana White had today for us, Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway for the bad motherfucker light heavyweight belt at UFC 300, 5 rounds. I'm not sure if that's going to be the main event or if that'll be the co-main, but it's a super exciting fight, and who knows, it could actually kick off the main card. That would be fun to have a 5 round fight, kick off the main card, nothing but just straight strikers in there. Who do I think would win that matchup? Max Holloway is a hell of a fighter. So is Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's been finished probably more. Um, oh man, I don't know. We'll pick a winner when we get closer to UFC 300. But shout out to both of those guys. This is going to be one of the better fights of the year, I think. Super exciting. And also, more news: Mackenzie Dern is going to step in at UFC 298. She will be replacing Tatiana Suarez, who had to call out unfortunately for an injury, and she will be facing Amanda Lemos in the final fight of the prelims that I'm seeing so far in Anaheim. That could get moved up to the main card, but we'll see. Both of these fighters have lost to Jessica Andrade. Mackenzie Dern's last fight coming to a wicked loss to Jessica Andrade when she just got outstriked. I mean, it wasn't her best performance. We all know Mackenzie Dern is a great fighter. She's one of the better women's strawweight fighters. Where is she ranked right now? Probably, I would say around, if I had to take a guess while I look it up, like number 7. Let's see though, just to be 100% sure. She's ranked number 6. So shout out to Mackenzie Dern. Big fight. Oh, wait, no, never mind. She's ranked number 8 now that I just pulled up the official UFC account. So she's number 8. Amanda Lemos is definitely much higher. Let's see what Lemos is. UFC. Well, it's going to be a great fight, though. I mean, I think Lemos will probably get it done. And I don't want to say it'll be the end of Mackenzie Dern by any means, because Mackenzie Dern is an amazing fighter. Hopefully she gets that Rose Namajunas fight that she's been trying to get after this fight, stepping in on short notice. This is just a month away, so that's a pretty big deal. My computer doesn't seem to work with me. Lemos is ranked number 4. So, incredible fight. Number 8 versus number 4. Dern has a chance to get back in the top 5 again with a win over Lemos at 298. So we will look forward to that one in the future. That being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. UFC 297 is this weekend, this Saturday, January the 20th. It will be the card that kind of kicks, I don't want to say kicks off my birthday, because my birthday is coming before that on January the 18th. But it will be like an early birthday present from the UFC. Or, excuse me, a late birthday present from the UFC. Luckily, I get a numbered card, which is a big deal. Sean Strickland defending the belt against Dricus du Plessis. Then we have Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva in the co-main event. There are 7 Canadians on this card in Toronto. I do believe that in the last card that they were in Canada, Canadians went undefeated. I don't think that will happen again. That was a pure luck, I would imagine. You know, matchmaking, of course, also probably had something to do with that. Styles make fights, and you know they could have just put together the perfect card for that. All 7 Canadians will be kicking off the early prelims and the prelims, with those being Malcolm Gordon, Jasmine Jasdavicius, Johan Lainez, Jillian Robertson, Serhai Side. I've never seen him actually fight before. Charles Jourdain, who's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC, and Brad Katana. So let's go ahead and break down these fights. Let's starting with the very first fight of the night. It's going to be Malcolm Gordon coming in at 14-7. Flyweight versus Jimmy Flick at 16-7. Both of these guys are actually 2-1 in their last 3, or excuse me, 1-2 in their last 3, 2 losses. So it's kind of up in the air on who I think could win this one because both of them are on a 2-fight losing streak. But looking at Malcolm Gordon's resume, further than the outside of his last 3, I do believe that the Canadian Malcolm Gordon will get the victory. Kickoff 297 with a get the crowd roaring, you know, with the very first fight of the night. So in this one, we're going to go ahead and go with Malcolm Gordon as our first victor of the night. Second matchup is going to be Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira. 2 incredible strikers in the UFC, women's flyweight, with both of them having losses to, with Jasdavicius having a win over Miranda Maverick and Cachoeira's last loss coming against Miranda Maverick by submission. If Cachoeira were to win this fight, I think it would come with a knockout, as Cachoeira has a knockout victory over our favorite fighter, Ariane Lipski, and it was a knockout in the first round. That was a devastating knockout for Lipski, but to get back on track with Cachoeira, she's an incredible striker, and she could go ahead and end the crowd's momentum in the second fight with a victory over Jasdavicius. However, I think Canadians will go 2-0 to start this card, and I'm going with Jasdavicius to... do I want to say, if we look at her last 3, she's went to the decision every time. Do I want to say she'll go to decision again? Probably, but if not, we might say that she'll get it won via submission. Up next, we got Johan Lainez versus Sam Patterson, who's making the move up from lightweight to welterweight for the first time. Both of these guys have a similar record. Lainez 9-2. Sam Patterson is 10-2-1. Lainez is coming in as the Canadian fighter in this matchup, so he's the favorite. I'm not sure who I'm going to go with. His last fight, Lainez, he saw a loss to Mike Malott, who was fighting on the main card against Neil Magny, which we'll get to later than that. But both of these fighters are coming off of a loss. Patterson's moving up to welterweight. It's just because the card's in Canada, I'm going to go with the Canadian this time. And we're going to go with Lainez. So that means that Canadians are going to be 3-0 in my predictions through the first 3 fights of the prelims. Let's go with Johan Lainez. This is, oh my gosh. I'm a huge fan of this fight. If it's not already known, I'm a tremendous supporter of women's MMA. I think that these women really leave it all on the line, and they have more entertaining fights than the men half the time. So this is a banger of a fight, and it's one of my most underappreciated fights on this card. Jillian Robertson, 12-8, versus Polyana Viana, 13-6. I think this is where we're going to run into the Canadians losing their first fight of the night. Both of these women have losses to Tabitha Ritchie, both by decision. Tabitha Ritchie, of course, is one of the greater strawweights in the UFC. She's top 15 for sure, I would imagine. But they both have losses to her. Both of these women are coming off of a loss right now. Let's go ahead and make our prediction for this fight. I think that Poliana Viana gets back on track. She's not been looking too good lately. 2-1 in her last, or 1-2, excuse me, in her last three. I think that her striking gets this one done, and she's going to knock out Jillian Robertson, who is notorious for her submissions and her groundwork. Poliana Viana, of course, is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter, and she will defend the takedown. Or if it goes to the ground, she will hold her own against Robertson, and she could get a submission win. But I think that Poliana Viana ends the run of undefeated Canadians, and now they will be 3-1 in the early prelims. So we're going with Poliana Viana to upset Jillian Robertson in this one. Up next on the card, two guys I've never seen before in my life. No offense to these guys, but I don't watch Dana White's Contender Series, and I'm not going to watch BFL or Combat Night Pro. No offense, but you have to be a absolutely diehard MMA fan. Eat, sleep, live, drink, breathe MMA to the core. Nothing else but watch MMA. And you know what? I mean, I'd rather watch the UFC. We'll watch the occasional Bellator, PFL card. They have a nice pay-per-view coming up. But just talking about these two guys, I've personally never seen either of these two fight before. They're both bantamweight 135ers, with Cide having a victory over Tavares already on Dana White's Contender Series. Came in the first round. Let's go ahead and say that the Canadian Cide gets them back on track. Canadians 4-1 through the first 4 fights of the prelims. So we're going to go ahead and lock that pick in Cide over Tavares. I don't know how he'll get it done. Maybe a KO. I mean, if you look at their previous 3 fights, all of them have been knockouts, and that's incredible. That means that these guys are not notorious for going, the distance. And I would not expect this one to go the distance either. But, we could leave this one off the parlay at the end of the day. I don't know. We'll keep them on there for now. We'll go Serhi Cide to defeat Tavares for the second time in his career. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is a beautiful fight for me as a fight fan. 2 fighters, Charles Jourdain, Sean Woodson. Both of these guys put on tremendous performances. I honestly do not know which one I would actually lean towards more winning this fight. As a UFC fan, Charles Jourdain is one of my favorite fighters. He has all the tools to be a champion level striker, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you will become champion. As a matter of fact, he tends to lack in other aspects of the fight, but he's an amazing striker. 2-1 in his last 3. Sean Woodson also 2-1 in his last 3, with a draw coming against Saldana at UFC 278. Sean Woodson has a hell of a chin on him. I mean, I've seen him get knocked down by, powerful strikes and still hold his own on the ground, survive to the next round. He has incredible groundwork. This one's a toss-up, man. At featherweight, God, Jourdain 15-6, Woodson 10-1-1. I think we're going to keep it in Canada on this one. And Canadians are going to be, what will that be? 5-1 so far in the early prelims. Nice. That's my predictions so far. So yeah, we're going to go with Charles Jourdain to actually pull this one out. Sean Woodson's second loss of his career. He's tough. That's going to be a hard fight for Charles Jourdain to win. But we're going to go Woodson. Despite the resiliency of Sean Woodson, I think that Jourdain can pull it out. I mean, he dominated Con Gracie, and he got a submission victory over Ramos in his last fight. I think he's going to get this one done and rep for Canada, put on another big fight of the night. And our final fight of the prelims is going to be a bantamweight, Brad Katana, the Canadian, versus Garrett Armfield. Katana 15-2, Armfield 9-3. This also is a toss-up for me because I've never seen either of these guys fight. Looks like Katana's only victory in the UFC coming at UFC 292 against Gibson. I probably watched it. I just don't remember it. And same with Armfield. You know, UFC. He has two UFC fight nights against Kazama and Onama. I know David Onama, so if he lost to Onama, I probably watched it, but I just don't recall it off the top of my head. These guys are going to end the prelims, so the UFC must be expecting an absolute war between these guys. But since it's happening in Toronto, we're going to go ahead and keep it Canada up here and give the win to Katana. That would make them 6-1 through the early prelims, with the only victory coming to Polyana Viana at strawweight. Pretty good early prelims and prelims to kick off the show, UFC 297. Man, I mean, I feel like we picked a lot of favorites in that one, but it be like that sometimes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick off the main card of 297. And it kicks off with an absolute banger of a fight. Number 3 featherweight Arnold Allen, 19-2, versus the number 9 featherweight Movsar Evloev, 17-0. I don't know who to pick for this one. This is a crazy fight. Like, Arnold Allen's last fight came to Max Holloway, which means he was one fight away from competing for the featherweight championship. They didn't have to give him Holloway. They could have went ahead and fed him to Volkanovski. Some people think, that he was championship material. I'm one of those people. Movsar Evloev, he's got a win over Diego Lopez, Dan Ige, Dawodu, knockout, decision. I mean, this guy knows how to win fights. He's 17-0, undefeated record. I'm going to go out on a whim here and say that undefeated record comes to an end, and we're going to go with the underdog, Arnold Allen, 19-2, to get it done, get back in that title picture shot. He's going to beat the number 9 featherweight, Movsar Evloev. I'm not sure how he's going to get it done. He could go to decision. He could get the knockout win. But either way, we're going to go with Arnold Allen in this one. So what a way to kick off the main card. What a banger. This could be a main event on a fight night anytime, and I would love to see it. 2 featherweights for an absolute banger. Up next at middleweight, we have number 13, Chris Curtis, 30-10 versus Marc-Andre Barriault, 16-6. Barriault, of course, is another Canadian fighter on the card. So let's say that Chris Curtis is actually going to get this one done. He's on it's not necessarily a 2-fight losing streak, while Barriault's on a 2-fight win streak. Chris Curtis coming off of a draw against Nasir Imavov, and a loss to Kelvin Gastelum. I think Chris Curtis is ready to get back on track, get back in that winners category. I mean, otherwise he's going to lose his top ranking spot, and this guy deserves every bit of being ranked top 15 middleweight in the UFC. And I think that he's going to get Barriault done. I'm not sure how it's going to happen. It'll probably go to decision. Barriault is tough, man. He's very resilient. I've seen him get dropped on his head before and live to tell about it. So shout out to Barriault, but we're going to go with Chris Curtis in the second fight of the main card. On to the next one. Men's welterweight, number 13, Neil Magny, 28-12 versus Mike Malott, another Canadian, 10-1-1. Malott, of course, coming off, Mike is 3-0 in his last 3, while Magny is 1-2 in his last 3. A loss here would probably see him fall out of the top 15, and not too surprising considering that Ian Gary absolutely exposed Neil Magny in their last fight. I mean, leg kick after leg kick after leg kick after leg kick. Neil Magny had no answer for Ian Gary the entire fight. The only thing that I would say about that fight against Gary was that I can't believe Ian Gary could not finish Magny. That's more of a failure on Gary's part, but he got the dub done. And now Neil Magny finds himself fighting Mike Malott. We're going to go with Malott, another Canadian, to win this fight against Magny. Which brings us to the co-main event of the night. Women's bantamweight title shot. Bantamweight, of course, is vacant after Amanda Nunes retired last season with the belt. And then Juliana Pena also faced injuries, so she wasn't able to compete for it. UFC never got around to schedule a match for the women's bantamweight title. Number 2 bantamweight Raquel Pennington, she's 15-9 versus the number 3 bantamweight Mayra Bueno Silva, 10-2-1. Bueno Silva, of course, was suspended last year sometime for use of a banned substance by the Nevada Commission. However, she's back in the title shot, and very deservingly so. Mayra Bueno Silva is an incredible fighter. She can get it done if you want to get knocked out, if you want to get submitted, if you want to get beat by decision. She's the girl to get it done. If you look at her last 3, she's going to be 2-1 with a no contest draw coming for Holly Holm. That's because that fight was overturned because of her being, testing positive for the banned substance. But she has wins over Egger and Landsberg, both by submission, while Raquel Pennington has wins over Ketlin Vieira, Aspen Ladd, and Chiasen. 2 by decision and 1 by submission. If I'm putting money on the line in this fight, I'm absolutely going Bueno Silva. No offense to Raquel Pennington, but I think it's time for Bueno Silva to, hold the belt, and she will represent the bantamweight division for a while to come. I don't see many contenders out of that weight class actually giving her a run for the money outside of perhaps Ketlin Vieira. And everybody's favorite fight of the night, the main event, the men's middleweight championship is up for grabs as Sean Strickland, 28-5, looks to retain his belt against the number 2 middleweight Dricus du Plessis, 20-2. Man, Sean Strickland, what a win over Israel Adesanya. I cannot believe it. When I watched that fight, I was absolutely mind blown. I could not believe what I was seeing. As soon as that fight kicked off, I was the end of the first round. What the hell? The end of the second round. What the hell? The end of the third round. Sean actually might win this thing. The end of the fourth round. Sean is actually going to win this thing. And then the end of the fifth round. At least Izzy might have won one round. Man, incredible turnaround on his career for Sean Strickland. He's 3-0 in his last 3. And when I say incredible turnaround, I don't mean, to say that he's a slouch by no means, but I mean, he has losses to Jared Cannonier, who we would all expect Adesanya to absolutely finish at, if he was fighting for the middleweight belt. As far as Dricus du Plessis, he has a win at 282 versus Darren Till by submission. He knocked out Derek Brunson at 285. Neither of those fighters are with the UFC anymore. And he dominated Robert Whittaker at 290 in the second round for a KO victory, which was really kind of hyping up du Plessis versus Adesanya because Israel was kind of calling him, who's the real African champion, whatever, blase, blase. Like, it was getting ugly. We were entering territory we didn't necessarily need to enter into. As a UFC fan, I wasn't exactly enjoying the banter that was going on between the two, as it was feeling a bit racial. Du Plessis, of course, is South African. He was born in South Africa, raised in South Africa, so he does represent that he is African. Adesanya took offense to that, being that du Plessis is a white man, and Adesanya, as a black man, is basically saying like he's the real king of Africa. We were just entering ugly territory. So for Sean Strickland to really take the belt off of him speaks volumes, because the next title fight would have probably been pretty nasty, which would have been this one. However, if du Plessis were to win this fight, the first title contender at middleweight could be Adesanya. Although We would all like to assume that Khamzat Chimaev would probably be the next challenger, but he needs another win over another top 5 middleweight. Probably Paulo Costa. I don't know if he's top 5 or not, but he defeated Kamaru Usman on short notice, who moved up to 185, which for me, is still kind of good enough to get you a title shot because Usman defended the welterweight strap for so long. He's no slouch. 15 pounds isn't really that much when you think about it, but yeah, Kamzat can have another fight. While we'll probably set up Duplessis versus Adesanya in the next fight. And who knows? I mean, at this rate, this is January. We could see Duplessis versus Adesanya at UFC 300, although it seems extremely unlikely as Adesanya said that he's going to be taking time off. However, oh man, we've come down to the final fight of the night. Who do I personally think is going to pull this one out? The way Sean Strickland fought against Israel, man. This is a tough one because Duplessis put on quite a performance against Robert Whittaker. I mean, both of these fights were very one-sided. I'm going to lean towards the champion, Sean Strickland, defending the middleweight belt against Dricus Duplessis at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Canada. You heard it here right now. We're going with Sean Strickland. Why did I make this decision? I don't know. I just feel like that's what we're gonna get, and I'm not mad at it. And it's gonna be a great card. A lot of great fights, as mentioned. All right. So Strickland versus Duplessis is a banger. Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev is such an underrated fight on this card, kicking off the main card, man. Oh my god, this one should have been the co-main. If there was not going to be another title shot on this card at women's bantamweight, Allen and Evloev absolutely deserve to be the co-main. Then we move down. Jourdain versus Woodson. Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. Such a great fight. I have no idea who's going to win that one. We flip a coin, and I'm going Jourdain because he's an incredible striker. If he gets it done via knockout, tremendous. But I do think he will outstrike him if it goes to a decision on the card, and they're tallying up, who actually had a better performance. Jillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. The return of Polyana Viana, looking for a victory. Jillian Robertson looking for a victory after a loss to Tabitha Ritchie. What a fight at women's strawweight. We hope Polyana Viana gets it done. However, if Jillian Robertson gets it done, it's probably very likely deserved. I mean, she works her ass off. She's got some good victories. Maria Agapova, I got to give her the nod too, but we love Polyana Viana around here. What else is on this card? Jasmine Jastovicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira. Banger. Somebody's probably going to get knocked out. And Cachoeira might do the knocking out against Jastovicius. That's just the fight fan in me. I know Cachoeira. Ariane Lipski is my favorite fighter. She knocked her out. She knocked her out with ease. Who's to say that Jastovicius won't get caught at 297? It's possible. We've seen it happen before. Lipski's ranked number 12 at women's flyweight. We're still going to go with Jastovicius on this one. Let's go ahead and put all these predictions together because that's kind of what the whole point of me even making these predictions is all about. I'm all about swinging for the fences, so I'm not exactly sure what the money line is going to look like for these fights. I took a look at it slightly, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I personally use Bet365. It's my favorite. So we picked Malcolm Gordon to win the first fight, negative 188 on Bet365. Jasmine Jastovicius, negative 400. Johan Lainez, negative 150. So that is 3 favorites in a row, 3 Canadians. Polyana Viana, the first underdog of the card that I predicted to win, plus 200 over Jillian Robertson. Robertson is a negative 250. I decided that we would go with Serhai Side in the next fight. He's a negative 170 to Ramon Tavares is plus 140. Charles Jourdain comes in at the favorite versus Sean Woodson, 188 versus plus 162. Let's go, Jourdain. And the final fight of the prelims, Brad Katana negative 188 versus Garrett Armfield plus 162. These are extremely close odds. So honestly, these matchmakers don't know who's honestly going to pull this one out. But we picked Katana representing Canada. That would mean 3 Canadian fighters in the first prelims, and the first 6 fights of the prelims, first 7 fights, excuse me, with Polyana Viana being the one that gets the upset win. And this one blows my mind. Arnold Allen is coming in at the underdog against Movsar Evloev. Arnold Allen just coming off of a loss to Max Holloway. Plus 162. What a steal. While Movsar Evloev comes in at a negative 188. We picked Chris Curtis, who's coming in at a negative 175 versus Marc-Andre Barriault at 150, plus 150. Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. Magny is a plus 275, while Malott is a negative 350. I did pick Malott for that one. Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. Pennington is a plus 140, while Bueno Silva is a negative 170, going with another favorite. And Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis in the main event. Sean Strickland coming in at a minus 125, while du Plessis is the underdog at plus 100. So, make these predictions for yourself. But together we've come on a 12-leg parlay at plus 54,157. So if we bet $1 on this card, well, it has a bonus. It has a boost on here for UFC 297. However, what this bet is going to, let's go ahead and place it. $1. $1 to win $840.44 with a $297.86 boost. I wasn't expecting there to be a boost on there. But yeah, I mean, it's just $1. I imagine that I love predicting UFC cards. I swing for the fences around here. I'm not interested in picking like 1 or 2 fights that I think will go one way. Like, no, let's pick the entire card. Who we think is going to win from top to fucking bottom. I've gotten this right a few times in my life. Last year, me and a homie of mine, I used to just post the card. And I posted it on an online message board. Anybody could, comment on it. And we would just pick our predictions for who we think would win the whole thing. And I got that right a few times. So, I mean, what's there to lose? $1? There's 52 weeks in a year. Let's say I don't get any of them right, which is absolutely not going to happen. I'm going to get one of these right. Then I'll be out of $52. Or in one fucking UFC 297, we'll be up $840. Probably not likely, but it's fun to just aim for the fences, absolutely hit the home run, and watch it sail to victory. So, a lot coming up at 297, a lot of big fights. My favorite fight of the night outside of the main event, of course, has to be Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. I mean, what an absolute fight, man. I can't get over that one. With the follow-up being Jillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. Let's go, Polyana. I believe in you. Represent. And then Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. What a fight. Oh my God, what a fight. I don't know who to pick, but we went with Charles Jourdain because that's who we like. That's one of my favorite fighters. Air Jourdain, he's going to get it done at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Canada, and it's going to be an incredible fight. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to our UFC 297 fight breakdown. And hopefully if you stuck around this long, hopefully I'm able to win you some money. And if not, hey, we'll try again next Saturday. That's the beauty of combat sports. Am I right? So you guys have a tremendous night, and I will see you again on Sunday.